So, my name is James. I'm honoured to be invited. Thanks, Michelle, for organising this amazing event and everyone being here. Where to start? Okay, so this is the alternative. This is the alternative name to my, and I'll talk about being an academic pirate in a minute. I want to start by telling you guys a story of lamb. I'm a Greek, right? So lamb has to make it somewhere. So when I was the first member in my family to go to university. And I was petrified. You know, the day before I was due to go to university, I ran and saw my dad. And I said to him, Dad, I said, you know, Dad's a builder, right? And so, you know, a Greek builder. So you know what he was doing, right? I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but I pretty much guarantee you he was probably laying concrete on the grass, right? So he's out the back and he's laying concrete. And I walk over and I say, Dad, you know, Dad, I got uni tomorrow. What do I take? You know, my dad's never been to uni. No one in my family's ever been to uni. So he says to me, he stops and he looks up, you know, from the concrete, right? So he stops and he looks up and he looks at me square in the eyes and he says, "Go ask your mother," right? So I go ask my mum and I say to my mum, I say, Mum, and she goes, "Dimitri," you know, and I'm like, "Oh, how you going?" She goes, "Oh, you're a good boy, go to uni, yay!" And I'm like, yeah. And she says, I say, Mum, I got uni tomorrow. You know, this is all in Greek, right? So you got to no subtitles here, so I have to say it in English. So I say to her, I say, Mum, I got uni tomorrow, so what do I take? You know? And she stops and she thinks and she says, she looks at me and she says, "Take your passport." And I'm like, "My passport?" She goes, "Yeah, that way everyone can know who you are, right?" I'm like, awesome, right? And then so I take my passport. And then she says, "Also, take some lamb," right? And I'm like, and we've always got spare lamb at home, right? Because we're Greek, right? And that's what we do. We always have spare lamb in case like one of our fifth cousins, 8 times removed, comes over. You've got to feed them lamb, right? And she says, "You've got to take lamb." And I say, "Why don't I take lamb?" And she says, "Because that way you can make friends," right? So the next day comes and I pack my bag, and thank God I got enough ideas, enough sense to take a pen with me and some paper, and you know, so I pack my passport so I know where I am, and then Mum packs me a Tupperware dish full of lamb. It's about this big, right? Because she wants me to make lots of friends, right? So I got this Tupperware dish about this big, and I walk to uni, and I sit at the front row, you know, and I wasn't very sharp at school. Like I just made it into uni, and I was sitting at the front row, and the lecturer walks out, and I was kind of sitting next to you, and I was sweating for 2 reasons. One, because I was incredibly petrified about being at uni, because this was my big chance to sort of ace it and make it big, right? Because this was the immigrant child dream, you know, be secure. Second thing was I went to an all-boys school, and a girl sat next to me, right? And I just remember like sweating profusely, freaking out. So there, you know, we had a small talk. Hi, she says, "Hi, how you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm great, doing some lamb." Anyway, so the lecturer walks in and he stands up in front and he stands like this, and he's kind of like, you know, and I'm sitting here, you know, this is my maths, this is my introduction to maths, because I was studying economics, you know, econometrics, this is what I wanted to do. And he tunes in and I'm sitting at the front row of this massive lecture room, and he says to me, he starts off and he stands in, he's larger than life as a lecturer. Oh my God. And he's sort of standing there and he looks and he says, "Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this semester. Just confirming that everyone is here for Advanced Asian Cinema 1. Advanced Asian Cinema 2. And I'm like, I'm a wog, right? So like the maximum, like we don't study cinema, we watch it, right? So I laugh. I'm the only person laughing because it was really advanced Asian cinema. And so I had to make a choice to get up and to walk out of that room like totally petrified, or spend the hour facing him, scared to death that he was going to ask me a question. And it figured that was what I did. I just sat there sweating profusely, okay, because the girl was next to me, but also because I was terrified he was going to ask me a question. I start with this story because this is the increasing experience of so many students. Okay, at the University of Western Sydney where I work, I'm lucky enough to teach first years. I have over 1,000 students in my class, and about 60% of them are first in family. Now, I think universities are going through what the newspaper industry went through 10 years ago, or what record labels or what CDs went through 10 years ago. I think everything is changing so fast, so dramatically, and academics don't know what to do, right? And when change happens that dramatically, the first thing you do is you hold on to the system that you know as tight as you have. Now, this is the model, right? And this is specifically an empty lecture theatre, because that's what most theatres look like these days, right? And I know because when I turn up to see other people lecture, I'm always heartbroken when you're in a room full of 300 people, knowing that you have 300 students but only 12 turn up. I'm lucky that I can continue to get my lecture theatres full, and I'll tell you some of the tricks I use in a minute. So, newspapers, but is this really a challenge? Well, because, you know, 12 20 years ago, only something like 8% of Australians actually had a university degree. If the models are right and the government get what it wants, by 2025, 40% of Australians will have a university degree. So doesn't that make life at universities awesome? Aren't we guaranteeing the future of universities? My answer is no, right? My answer is that universities are stuck in this model like newspapers were, and they just figured we are content providers, we have all the information, we sit in the middle, we have control, we will control this process. And I think those university lecturers and those universities that are adopting that model are basically kidding themselves. Okay, this is how we transmit knowledge traditionally. This is a model that we follow. The professor stands at the front, knowing everything, right? You know, being the center of attention and passing out the information. This is how knowledge works, I think, today. But even more than that, we have a process of intermediate relational knowledge. So knowledge is no longer a vertical process where I sit at the top and I pass knowledge down. It's now a horizontal process. It flicks around. And between all that, there's lots of different other people who are producing knowledge. It's not just me, the academic. There's media, there's social media, there's people who, anyone, right? All sorts of different people are producing knowledge. And I think, most of my colleagues see this as a threat, right? Online university courses such as massive online open courses, my colleagues see that as a threat, and I see that as a massive opportunity. And I think why? And I think because we can actually encourage students to participate in knowledge production. Okay, the problem is with academics, we tend to focus on one area, right? And that is skills and knowledge, okay? And skills and knowledge is this. It's about getting you to focus on getting a job, right? Okay, and this is what the corporate sector keeps on screaming. This is what Ernst & Young said, get students job ready. But what jobs are we getting students ready for, okay? In 2011, the top 10 jobs produced did not exist 10 years before, right? So how are we getting jobs? We actually have to prepare students for jobs that do not exist yet. And this is what I think we need to focus on, right? The citizen scholar, on promoting a sense of cultural interactions, right? Of understanding knowledge as something that's culturally produced, that we produce together, right? And I think once a student can get that, then they can actually promote knowledge in so many different ways, okay? And they can develop their own knowledge, and we co-develop that knowledge. And that was what Dan said, when I see myself as trading knowledge with students. Okay, so solution, participatory education or teaching like a pirate. Okay, students co-design my classes. How am I going with time? We've got a few minutes left? Yep. Okay, students co-design my classes. Okay, part one, from Facebook to word cloud. One of the things I do in class and leading up to class is I go onto Facebook and I ask my students a question. What is globalization? How does globalization impact you, for example? What is the environment? Tell me about racism. All these sorts of questions. They then respond on Facebook. I take those words, right? This can be either before the class or live during the lecture. I cut and paste those words straight into a word cloud. I'm sure there's probably a more efficient way of doing that, but I'm not super tech, right? So if you can help me here, help me. And what I do is I use those word clouds that come up, right? I use them to enter the debate, right? So they're the ones that are setting at what point we enter the debate. I'm not sitting there telling them that what you need to do is understand 2007 David Hell's definition of globalization, which is about the compression of time and space, right? What's that mean? But what they tell me is what globalization means to them. A word that comes up often is fear. They're scared. It's changing. Everything's changing. And so the students raise it. So this is an awesome way to enter the debate. They set the parameters to enter the debate. I bring the theoretical knowledge, but from their perspective, okay? 2, students are not empty vessels, okay? The traditional model is that they're an empty vessel, an empty glass, right? I have some colleagues here on a project I'm working on, looking at citizenship, Professor Bob Hodge and Anna Powell from Shift Space, who have helped me develop these models, where we don't see students as empty vessels. They're not empty glasses, and I don't have the knowledge here and pour it in, right? They're already full of knowledge. I have different knowledge, and we trade it. So one of the things I've done is I've designed this online ebook. I'm coming up with a new version at the moment, and what that includes is their stories, their interpretations of the theory, right? So again, it's a space of traded knowledge. The third space is multiple delivery mechanisms. And what I want to say about that is, you know, it's kind of what Michelle did with the paper, right? There are so many ways to participate. It's not always online. Good pedagogical practices are good pedagogical practices. And so one of the things I do is try and find different ways for students to interact. I make my own videos. I've actually used your "Where the fucking hell are we" video many a time in class to get students. Well, I'll give you one now. Yeah. I'm now a professor. I can't do that yet, but I'll be on my way. Okay. So this is kind of, I won't have a chance to go through that, but the point is here is that good pedagogical practices are good pedagogical practices. And one of the things about blended learning and participation is people come up with these really kind of long, these really long, complex definitions. And I argue, right, I think that's a waste of time to try and make it too complex. I think this is a better way to think about co-development of knowledge, and that is good pedagogical practices using a variety of delivery mechanisms and allowing students flexibility, right? Getting their knowledge and sharing it. Who said that? I said that. Huh? Okay. 3 ways. 3 ways I think I want to finish up with. 3 ways. 1, knowledge is a commons, right? It's not something that one person owns, it's something we all share, right? It's like imagine like a big picnic. If we all bring a dish, it's going to be amazing, right? If only one person hogs that, then only one person's really going to eat, or very few people will eat, and that's the people usually closest to the party. 2, from IP to intellect, right? From intellectual property, one of the things that academics do, like I said, we hold on to this knowledge. You know, I'll go to meetings and we say we should put that online, that's great. And people say, but it's my IP, right? What's that mean, okay? It's about intellect, it's about sharing knowledge, exchanging, thriving from that, right? Think about it. Everyone brings something to the picnic. And it's about sharing, collaborating, and open source. I'll tell you something. I was saying this story earlier to Liam. I went to one of my academic colleagues, and I'll just finish up by saying this. One of my academic colleagues said that, we're in a meeting, and said, what I want to do is I want to ban every piece of technology from the classroom, right? Only pens and papers. I want to shut down the internet during the classroom, because that way I know students will concentrate, right? And so so this person said this, and a few of the other academics went, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm not just talking about a generation thing, it's across generations, right? And everyone went, yeah. So what we did, right, as a response to that, we decided to have a few meetings to see if we got all the staff together in these different meetings, right? We sit there and concentrate more on the meetings, right, rather than playing on Facebook and stuff like that, right? Within about 3 minutes, I was busted passing letters to other academics, right? Like we used to do in 4th class, like we were writing little notes to each other and passing them. People were doodling, right? This is the thing, people are terrified of this stuff. And I think one of the dangers of this place is letting go. And academics aren't used to letting go of knowledge development. But within that knowledge development is an incredible amount of power. Okay, fear and loathing in the classroom, I said that. Thank you.